It was 17 years ago that Toronto FC signed its first ever player, Captain Jim Brennan, now known as Jimmy Brennan. So who better to break down Toronto FC and all the ails the club this season, previous seasons, and maybe in the future, but Jimmy Brennan. Jimmy, welcome to Room 442.
Is it 17 years?
17 years, yeah. When you signed, first season was 2007, but you signed before the season.
Yeah.
I was at that press conference. There's a lot of excitement.
Do you remember my shirt?
No, I don't remember the shirt. What was the shirt?
Funky, man.
Was it great?
This crazy blue shirt, big collar.
You were like a big-time Charlie back in those days, weren't
Yeah,
you?
it was. I went downhill quick.
Coming from English football, take over Canada. I mean, how can it not succeed?
Yeah.
It took a while. It wasn't a great first season. But when you look back on TFC, okay, there's been some highs, right? There's been a lot of lows. When they've been good, they've been really good. When they've been bad, they've been really bad, but they have that cup, right? They have that championship and obviously other final appearances. Would you say overall it's been a successful franchise?
Yes, I do. I do think it's been a successful franchise. I think they've had some good highs. And look, at the end of the day, every single MLS team wants to win an MLS Cup, and they've won an MLS Cup, and that's the goal. Is to win a championship. They won a championship. We've had a few good years and great success. Some great players have come through this franchise. But like anything, Sharms, and firsthand, like it's hard to stay at the top. And when those players that you've won a championship with end up moving on, and you're trying to find that next group that's going to come in and be successful for you, it's hard sometimes to bring those pieces in to get that success that you had before. And then you go into that rebuilding stage again, and you see this across all football around the world, and there's not many teams that can stay at that top for 10, 15 years.
So if you rewind time here and go back to when you first signed, how was it sold to you by ownership? How did they say, listen, we want you to come from England, we had a good career, long career, come back to your hometown and play football? I
was just at a point where I was ready to come back. I had 13 years in England. I was 29, 30. And it was difficult at times as well because I left, my brothers and my parents and cousins and friends. And, you didn't get to see them as much. And they didn't get to see me play because I left when I was, 16, 17. And when this Toronto FC came up and I got a few phone calls saying, we'd like you to come back and play. My first question was, who's involved? They said Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. So I was like, okay, now you've got a ownership group with deep pockets. And most things that they touch turn to gold, and they're quite successful. So I was automatically lured to that, knowing that they're building a stadium. It's going to be right downtown. Looking at the people that were involved in the organization, obviously MLSC being behind it and backing it. I had some good conversations with people within the organization, and it just made sense. And it was the right time for me to come back home, be a part of something special, building a professional football club in Toronto, a city where you're born, and playing that small role that everybody does to bring success and to help something grow. Everybody's got to play a part in it, and I wanted that challenge. I wanted something new. Did I know what I was getting into? No, I had no idea, but I just knew I wanted to be a part of something that was going to be historic and help be a part of something that was going to be around for a long time. And to see where the club is today, we're not getting the results on the field, but looking at the stadium, how big the club is, just going to the local soccer fields and seeing kids wearing TFC jerseys. And, it's quite proud that for myself that, I was able to be a part of it. And it allowed me to finish my career here in Toronto, where my friends and family could come watch me play week in and week out. But it was quite challenging. That's for sure. And another thing that I wanted to do was be a part of it because it was something that I was starved of as a kid. We didn't have a professional team. We didn't have professional football. And that's why I had to leave. I ended up going overseas, and now all these local, young Toronto guys and players in the GTA, they've got an opportunity here to play professional football in their own backyard now.
Yeah, it's true. And those kids.
That for a ramble?
That's a good ramble,
Yeah.
But I think you hit some good points there. And the fact is, when you started out, those kids in the stands who are partying their asses off, having a great old time. Since then, they've had kids, and those kids are now being brought up as TFC fans, right? Which is how you establish that fan culture, right? It takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, 100%.
It takes a long time. But then you look at the current situation, right? And there's been lows before.
Yeah.
I don't know, is this the lowest point? Simply because of what the money was spent before this season, the expectations on this team before this season, and now here we are now with what, a few games left in the campaign, and they're dead last in the league. Lost last night to Inter Miami 4-0 without Leo Messi for most of the match, I should add as well. Would you say this is their rock bottom at this point?
Yeah, for sure it is. For sure it is. I mean, a lot of people talk about the beginning, but the beginning, remember, you're building. You're building. You're going to go through some very, very hard times. And a lot of people seem to forget as well. Back then, you had to have, what was it, 13 to 15 Canadians on your roster?
Yeah.
And we had some young guys that should never have been on the roster, but we're on it because we had to make up numbers, because those are the rules that we had to follow. But as the club started to grow and the rules started to change as well, where you didn't have to have so many Canadians, you didn't have to have, all these things that maybe hindered us at the beginning. And then you do get successful. Then you do win championships. You win in Canadian championships. But then to go that far off the cliff right now and have all these losses and things just not going well on and off the pitch, and there's just a lot of drama that's surrounding this club at the moment. There's this dark cloud that's got to get lifted, and it's got to get lifted real quick because it's not in a good place right now.
But I do think that people almost forget about the good times too, right? And they remember how it started out and not many wins in that first year. But like you said, that was a brand new expansion club growing, different to expansion clubs now. Like I said, there's so many challenges being a Canadian team back in those days. But they look at the team now and they're almost like shrouded by the failures of the past. But at was a point not that long ago where TFC was a model franchise. And Don Garber would say that is what we want our teams to be: well-run, rich owners, willing to spend, success on the pitch, right? It wasn't that far away. Do you think they're that far away from returning there now?
No, I don't think we're that far away. No, and you're right. It is a model franchise, and that supporter group down there deserves. They deserve success. They've been there through thick and thin. They still come out in numbers supporting the club, regardless of what's going on. Yeah, they voice their opinion. They're entitled to. You're entitled to. You're a supporter. You pay to go in there. You want to be entertained. You want to see players working and representing that badge, and where they are right now, yeah, it's not good enough. The supporters know that, but the club has to get back to where it is. And when they're successful, and they're winning games, and the fans are in there singing, screaming, the buzz around the city, it is electric in there, and it's a great sporting venue to be at when it is successful. And they've got to get that back there quick, because you can see a lot of people are, they're not happy. They're not happy where this club is right now, because they demand it to be back where it is when they did win a championship. And
yeah, I mean, there's anger right in that fan base right now, more than I've seen for a long time. But you understand why. Yeah, they make the move. They hired John Herdman to take over as head coach October the 1st. A popular figure, proven internationally, club-wise, not yet.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting hire, and I think it will be a hire that will bring people out, and the fans will give him a lot of time to rebuild this whole club. But what is the first priority John Herdman's got to take care of when he takes the helm October 1st?
Well, for me, I know he's watching closely, has been for some time now. He's been at games. He's watched the players. He's got to figure out what players he needs to move on quick, and what players he wants to get in, and players that are going to adapt and adjust to his style of play, his philosophy. Players that are going to buy into what he wants to do and the culture that he wants to bring to this organization. So if he's looking at players right now that aren't performing, now you've got to keep in mind, if a new manager's coming in, you should be busting your gut every single week in.
Already though, right? Even without him being there.
Right
so
now,
why aren't they?
He's watching.
Why aren't all the players doing that? Some are.
Yeah. Some are, but some are just coasting. Now, if I'm John Herdman, I'm looking at these players that are coasting. You're out.
Right.
We'll see you later. Because if you're not working now, and I'm coming in. What's it going to be like next season?
Does that include Lorenzo Insigne, Federico Bernardeschi, players that have the quality we know they do? Do you think John Herdman thinks, man, these guys aren't putting it in enough, I want them out? Or is he thinking, man, I can motivate these players, I can make them perform in MLS? Because from a talent standpoint, they should both be dominating Major League Soccer.
No, they should be. Yeah, but that's a difficult one as well because there's a big investment that's there.
Yeah.
Right, from the organization. There's a big investment. Now, you brought these players in because you believe in them and you think they can do something at this level. But if we surrounded them with the right players for them to be successful, probably not. Right? Probably not. You look how many times that they want to get forward and try to be creative, and all of a sudden we go back the other way and you're down 1-0.
Right.
And then you give them the ball again. They want to make something happen, get in the box, and all of a sudden now you're down 2-0. And you can see they're looking back defensively going, what is happening here? Mm-hmm. We don't have the support. And maybe John's going to look at that and say, let's get the players in that can support these guys. Because these guys can be game changers. Now, you got 2 wide guys that are fantastic players, but you need a number 9.
Right.
Right? Because they're going to get down the line and be creative and get the ball in the box. But if you don't got a guy who can score the goals, then
yeah.
what are they working for?
So he's got to go to ownership and say, I need more money. In that case, I've got to get myself an established number 9.
Right. So maybe,
they don't come cheap, do they?
No, of course they don't come cheap. That's why you pay those guys, because they win you games.
Right.
That's why you pay the big bucks, because they'll pick up 3 points here, there, and win. They'll win you games.
So tell me what your gut tells me. We start next season, right? John Herdman as head coach. Are both Insigne and Bernardeschi both still there?
If I'm him, I would be having a conversation with them because I'd want to get to know them as people and understand where their heads are at right now and understand why they're not performing. Mm-hmm. And if I'm getting a good read off of them and I'm having a good conversation and I think, okay, I can help out this situation, get the best for you guys and get you the best resources to be successful, then I'm keeping you. But if I'm having a conversation, I'm just getting not good vibes and I can see that they don't want to be here, they're not enjoying, they're not settling into the city, then it's best for both parties to wash your hands and say, okay, let's move on and we'll go figure out where we're going to go next. But now John's in a good position because now you're coming in October 1st, season's almost over, you're not in playoffs. Now you got plenty of time to adjust and fix this roster.
Yeah. I mean, quite frankly, he comes in with 3 games left, I think, in the season.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, there's no pressure this campaign. It's very much he's got 3 games to just figure out what he has there. On the bright side, I suppose, is that a lot of young kids were blooded this season, got some big minutes, right? And maybe that's part of the reason why the team's struggling. At the same time, is there a danger that playing in a losing environment like that, and that room hasn't been great, that can actually stymie a kid's development? Yeah,
for sure, 100% can. And it's not fair for the young players as well, right? Because you're meant to nurture the young players.
Right.
When they come in, make sure they get a certain amount of minutes or a certain amount of games here and there. And you've got to teach them how to be a young professional. How difficult it is training every single day at this level now, the travel, and you've got to monitor where they're at and how they're performing to make sure that when they do get into that first team and they start getting regular minutes, then you've put them in a place where they're going to be successful. Mm-hmm. Where a lot of these young guys were playing extra minutes in certain games, and you're going, these guys should not be on the pitch right now. But They have to because they don't have any other choice but to play these young guys.
Yeah.
And you're setting them up for failure in a way because you're not getting results. You're losing. Now these young guys are getting a taste of first team action, not getting success, not feeling the joys of winning matches.
Is this like when you first started in 2007 at TFC? You mentioned those Canadian kids that probably shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
They were in a losing environment. Did their development get held back because of that?
I think there was players that were in a situation where they didn't really understand it. Because we keep in mind we never had professional football. We didn't have academy that could push them onto that next level. We're taking guys that are just playing local football, and all of a sudden now you're playing in front of 20,000 people, right? So that was very difficult for a lot of those players. And then what ended up happening was because they had so many minutes, because they had to play, that you start seeing them halfway through the season starting to break down.
Oh yeah,
right. Because their bodies aren't used to it. They're not used to all that training, all that travel. So they start off great, and then all of a sudden now they're in this lull. They start dropping a little bit. But you got to be able to manage them and bring them back out of it, because all players, when you're young, when you first break into the team, you're going to go through a little spell, maybe a month or so, where you drop, and then all of a sudden now your body's starting to come back again, and then you start getting back up on, to play where you should be, where your performance levels. And it takes a little bit of time, where I think with the guys that we had, you rode them. It was too much for them, and they did tend to struggle because they didn't have anything that could prepare them.
But it was, thankfully, back in those days, a pretty tight room. You guys got on with each other, as opposed to now, where there are divisions within that room. But overall, the way MLS is, do you think, should a TFC fan right now look at this season, right, try and put it into their distant memory, and move forward? Is a fix easy for this club, do you think?
No, it's not, because people don't forget. They'll look at this season and go, yeah, it is a write-off, but for the players that we had, and at the beginning of the season, there was a lot of promise. Everybody thought this is going to be a very, very good team.
Cup contenders, right? We thought
cup contenders, and everybody was talking about it. But there is an awful lot to fix, and I think if I'm a supporter now, which I am, because I want this club to be successful, I'm looking in the off season, seeing what's the acquisitions here, what are we bringing in, what's out.
Yeah.
You want to see what the plan is, what John's philosophy is, what's his identity, what's he looking to do in the preseason games, what's our formation, who's the players, how are they getting on, and I think a lot of people are going to be watching very, very closely to see where we're, because I'm watching this team right now. They're not fit at all. They're not fit. Some of these players, you could see they're already breathing out the backsides after 35 minutes.
Why is that?
It's just the fitness levels aren't good.
Mm-hmm.
Need to be better.
Right.
So, and I'm sure John's been looking at it, and people have talked about it, saying they're not fit. So you've got to make sure that you do have a good preseason, a very, very good preseason. Make sure that these players are fit and they're ready to go, and they're going to last till the end of the season, because, especially around this time, you're seeing the majority of the other teams peaking.
Yeah.
Peaking going into playoffs.
That's a good point, actually.
But TFC's not peaking.
No, we saw last night.
They're
the second
dragging
half,
right now.
they just dragged their heels.
They're dragging their heels.
And they can see 4 goals.
They're not prepared right.
Yeah. Well, listen, Herdman's on his way. Is he the saviour? We're going to find out. Jimmy, you were the first captain of the team. Thanks so much for this. We can catch you on One Soccer, of course, covering all things Canadian Premier League, and a little podcast I've heard of called Footy Prime.
Yeah, it's not
podcast.
bad. You should listen to that.
I'll give it a whirl. I certainly will. The English Premier Course is back this weekend. It's free to play. 442picks.ca, weekly and monthly prizes. Sign on up. Room 442 is brought to you by North Star Bets. That's a win.